Okay, starting. Hi, good evening, everyone. Please give us a few minutes. We are just setting up and getting ready to start. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we are ready to take as many questions as you throw our way. And it would be great if you put your questions in the Q&A box. It's easier for us to access it and answer it. Welcome to the session, Rohan, sorry. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
So I believe you prepared a small presentation and you're sort of going to be talking to people about how to think about their resume, etc.
Yes.
And I'm really curious to know what the 5 things are. I know the one which has always been your favorite, which is one-page resume.
My favorite is no pictures, but
okay, I know you don't like pictures. Okay.
But yes, we're going to keep it crisp. The PPT is very clean, just like a resume.
Okay, great. So Rohan has some really good advice for you today. And, as we said, we're happy to answer questions as we go along. I'd like to introduce Rohan, my partner in crime today. Rohan is a co-founder of an organization called Build Your Own Brand. Rohan, would you like to tell us a little about yourself and then we'll begin?
Yeah, sure. So born and brought up in Delhi, went to the States to study, came back in 2016, worked for sales for 6 years at Zomato, Dine Out, MTV, then started BYOB. We primarily help 2 kinds of clientele. One is a job seeker. We have them design resumes, LinkedIn profiles, interview preparation, video resumes. And we also help founders, CXOs with written content across LinkedIn, publications, etc. Short and sweet.
All right, then why don't we begin? So I know we are hoping for lots of questions today, but why don't you start with the presentation that you had and let's figure out what the other 4 are. And
sure.
If the questions, as I said, once again, everyone, as part of the Harappa School of Leadership Outreach Program, we are here to answer any question that we can. We will be talking about the Accelerated Management Program, which I represent. Rohan works with us closely to help our students build their one-page resume and also work and think through. For us, it's actually almost a month-long exercise where there are multiple questions asked, multiple ways in which we help people to build their resume, which we believe eventually helps them to, at least get noticed at a recruiting or at a job, this thing, because we know actually whether your first sort of glimpse that anyone has of you is really your resume, especially when you don't know people and you're applying for a job, through a LinkedIn profile or through any other recruitment portal. So there are a few things you need to keep in mind. And while, we all like to create resumes which have, which look good, sometimes perhaps the most functional and the basic resume is the one that probably gets the most sort of eyeballs. We'll discuss this as we go along. As always, please feel free to ask us any questions, but please put them in the Q&A box so that we are able to see them and we are able to answer quickly. We will pick questions as we go along. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I think you perfectly summed it up. The plainer and the better the resume, the higher the chances, and that's what we advocate. I hope everyone can see my screen. Cool. So, like Seema mentioned, a resume is like your first introduction business card, which kind of someone gets to see and they don't know you. So whenever you're meeting someone or even you're talking, you want them to kind of get to the point quick because you don't have any context. So I've kept this slideshow very to the point and crisp, just like a resume should be. So we're going to be focusing on 5 important things which kind of make an resume encapsulate its all in entirety. So just a summary of what it's going to be like. Number 1 is one page always. This is a Highly debatable topic all the time. People are still figuring out if it's one page is good, two pages is great. But like we always do, always think from the viewer's perspective, why it should be one page, because we're consuming a lot of information. Then we'll cover what an ideal resume bullet should look like. How can someone quantify their information, transferable skills? How can you show your impact? The skill section, because there is a lot of, I would say, noise around that you should tailor your resume for every different job, etc. But when you get down to it, you'll figure out that it's a very tedious task. So it's best to kind of keep one master resume, and the skill section really helps there. Lastly, summary and photos. There are certain guidelines around it. I'll tell you where it's advisable to keep a summary, where it's not, and what is my opinion about photos and what is the global standard. And last but not least will be the application tracking software, ATS. So this is something that has been in recruitment for a very long time, and large companies, Fortune 500, FMCGs, people who recruit in bulk use this software for a primarily of large number of use cases. But the primary use case is parsing a resume. So I'll tell you what all things that you should focus on when you want to make it compatible.
Before Rohan starts his one-page, two-page debate, and I know lots of people have that question all the time, what we are advocating or what we talk about is really to have this one-page resume ready with you. If you feel that a particular job description requires you to add more points or you need to do something more, please feel free to send a two-page resume. But the one-page one-page resume is really the handy document that has the most key things that you need ready in one place, in one format, so that you're able to then sort of, you don't always have to hunt. And the advice that Rohan and in fact, even we at Etsol gave is that keep your resume updated. You've done a big project, find a way to quantify it or talk about it right away in your resume. Don't wait for the next job search to sort of then start adding things. You will forget, you will not remember the important points in it. And you may also sometimes just overlook it because you may have got another important project. So think about it. That's the way to keep your resume fresh. All yours, Ram.
Siva, that's a very good point. Actually, that's how BYOB was originated. When I started my resume, I would used to have like a Google Doc and a Drive and just document whatever I do. And that really helps. So, like Seema said, one page should always be there. It should be a highlight reel, like we always internally say. Save the details for the match, which is your interview. Keep it very to the point, to the crisp. There is this very famous statistic that an average recruiter or hiring manager or anyone who looks at your resume spends only 6 seconds. So when you're designing your resume, don't design it as a monologue. You have a lot of things to say, but only focus on the eye-grabbing attention and the big brands and the big numbers. Why? Because clearly today, especially, there is a huge amount of information overload. We are consuming a lot of content online. We're spending a lot of time on social media. We are burdened with regular work and responsibilities. So think from a hiring manager's point of view, or someone you're going to be sending a resume, which is primarily a recruiter. She's or he is going to be bombarded with hundreds of applications. So they don't have time to kind of read everything. That is why it's essential to always have a one-page resume. And in case there are definitely job opportunities which require higher experience, they want to hire for CXO's level, director's level, they specifically ask for a CV, which is slightly longer than a one page. Feel free to share it through. Their portfolio links, all of that can be linked on your resume.
Let's play a small game, Rohan. I'm just wanted to ask everyone if they can just use the sign below and just tell us how many of you actually have a one-page resume. You could just do a thumbs up, or you could just put it on the chat. How many of you have a one-page resume that you feel can be used anywhere? Okay. I see 2 participants have raised their hand. All right, 3. Okay. Okay. Maybe the question to ask should have been, how many of you don't have a one-page resume?
I
Maybe
think,
you can just Just to a thumbs down for that, it would be in chat. It would be good to know. Only Guru Raj did that, but it would be interesting to know how many of you don't have a one-page resume that you can pick out at any point and send anywhere. Okay. All right. I can see about 4 or 5 people. So both ways, I don't think we are
You should
not.
ask how many of you have a resume. That's the next
Oh,
one.
is that the question? How many you have a resume that's ready to go out at any point in time? Okay. So actually, more people are now putting their thumbs down to say that they don't have a one-page resume. They don't have a resume ready. So I think, guys, if you are really out there looking for a job, if you are interested in changing your role, I think this is one of the most basic things. And I think that's the reason why in the accelerated management program, we don't wait for you to complete your course. We actually start the career office immediately, and the first thing we do is help you build your resume, because we believe that in the next 5 months or 4 months that is remaining, your resume should be handy, so that if we need to send it out or you need to send it out, you should be able to do it at any point in time. Okay, Rohan.
Cool. So this is like a very the most ideal example. We kind of build on resumes internally. I have listed down the benefits and how it looks like. I'll just give a brief overview. Depending on your stage of career, if you are looking for your job, second job, third job, work experience always takes precedence. It will be on the top. If you're right, if you see it's all aligned in one page, there's a separate skill section, certification section, education is bottom, internship experience. Now, all of these sections are movable. So suppose you're looking for your first internship, education will be on top. Then if it's looking for your first job, your internship experience moves up and skills moves up, because that is the most recent thing you have to kind of show off. Now, like I mentioned, on the right are a bunch of benefits of a one-page resume. Always read these benefits as a viewer. If a resume is sent to you, how will you scan it? All right. You will probably look for the information, not colors. So it should be easy to read. It should save them time. It forces the writer to focus on key information. So the best part about making a one-page resume, I've realized, it enhances your creativity. How can you shorten it? Writing long-form content is always easier. Like, people can write longer words. They can write 250, 300 words. But getting that information down into one bullet is really hard. It looks easy, even with AI. It's not that, it's pretty hard. So it enhances your kind of availability, and it also pushes you to think harder, that what I did at that job, was it that important, or which was more important? And of course, since you are trying to fit everything into one page, you'll start avoiding redundancies, because that is something we come across very often. People will keep on explaining the same project they did. They will go into super details, not just quantify it. So all of these 6 really benefit when you're making a one-page resume. When it comes to a 2-page resume, which is really, really needed, you have a lot of work experience, you can definitely go into more elaboration.
So let me stop you here, Rohan, and ask you, what do you mean by information that is redundant? Maybe can you give us an example?
So, like I would say, if I'm handling clients for whom I'm making resumes, LinkedIn profiles, interview preps, and video resumes, that is one client for me. All right. Now, I don't need to get into detail on my resume that maybe these are 4 different revenue streams and 4 different types of clientele, that I'm saying that I did 50 resumes, 40 video resumes, and something like that. I can just quantify that into one and say that I've done 300 clients. That's a larger number. When I reach the interview, I can kind of break that down and so on. So instead of using separate numbers, it reduces the redundancy. It becomes a concise bullet, and you're not repeating yourself. Now it happens with a lot of, like, I would say, certifications also. There are always, like, when we are in college, we do certifications just to get our credits up. But like, I've done information security certifications. Those are not relevant right now for me. All right. So if I've done some kind of ghostwriting certification or resume writing certification, that is more relevant. So I don't need to add all of them because I'm already progressed in my career. So avoid the stuff that can be left as you progress and it's not redundant.
What about things like people put down their father's names, or they put down whether they're married or not, or,
I
put down
think that's,
school information? I
yeah.
mean,
No, I do agree with that. I think we have noticed that with a lot of clientele, and what we actually dug deep to find out why this was happening. It's, I think, the legacy approach that has not been updated at institutions, all right? Especially because there are certain institutes that are very good, as good as like a top 10 in Delhi University. They're still calling it biodata, all right? So when that word comes in, they'll put in the family information, etc. School is a subjective call, all right, but it's only relevant for your first internship or first job, all right, because at that time candidate does not have much to kind of talk about or show, and if they've been a national level kind of extracurricular achiever, that's something definitely you should put about. But yeah, you can leave out the family details and everything for sure. That's a very passe thing.
I'll just pick up two questions that have come. I think one of the two things that, same question from Sarath and I think Jeevan. They're both asking the same thing. What is the difference between a resume and a CV?
Please do visit our website. That's one of our FAQs. So a CV is a longer format, all right? And a resume, it's called curriculum vitae, if I am pronouncing it right. A resume is a concise version of the CV. That is the textbook definition. CV has been used very legally, like for a long time across countries, not just in India. So that is the primary difference. CV is definitely used in a lot of research fields as well. Because,
academics,
yeah,
places where your resume must indicate not projects, but
research.
your academic publications. Now,
Correct.
those things you can't put down in a, by the time you finish writing the title, the citation, where it was published, that takes quarter of your page, right?
Absolutely.
A CV is something normally is used. It's a longer format, as Rohan said, and it's also normally used in specific fields and industries where it makes sense. It's not
There are a
relevant
couple of
everywhere.
PhD resumes there we had to make it a CV because their work is entire research. So there's there we have to kind of elongate it. But that's the primary definition.
We have one more question in the chat. Once again, I'd request not to put your questions in the chat. Please put it in the Q&A. It's easier for us to read it from there. There is a question, Ria, I'd request you to please put it in the Q&A. Meanwhile, there's a question from, I think, Keshava. He says, how do you use your resume if you're a fresher, if you don't have any experience, and the only sort of thing to showcase perhaps is your internship, and maybe if you went to a great school?
I think that's the best part. Today, right now, knowledge is the one commodity. I don't know if you call it commodity. It's available for free. You can, if you're a fresher, you can definitely elaborate more on it. And if it's your first internship, you have to elaborate on what you did in school. What were the extracurriculars? Show your leadership experience. Were you part of any societies? Were you the head boy? Examples like that. And there are a bunch of certifications which you can do online, just on LinkedIn. There are so many that you won't even have time to finish it. Why don't you just play around and take one from every domain? It can be finance, it can be marketing, it can be social marketing, it can be content marketing, and start adding those, because that not only shows intent, but it also gives you an edge against a lot of freshers, because they wouldn't be putting that much. And today, if I was a fresher, like right now, my CV would have been 2 pages for sure, because there's just so much available online that you can do and add to it. We recently had a case who have joined the work experience after 6 years of a break. They ended up doing about 8 certifications in different domains. So the dearth of knowledge available right now is pretty good. So if you're a fresher looking for something really at the start of your career, elaborate your school experience, focus on leadership, focus on extracurriculars. They know your marks, all of that will be taken care of, and then pick on something online and start doing that.
Okay, carry on, Rohan. We'll pick up more questions as we go along.
Cool. So what's the ideal resume bullet? I have 4 examples over here, and on the next slide, I'll explain how I kind of got these over there. So I want just everyone to kind of absorb them. And what do you see? So the first one is of a sales professional. That's actually mine. So I had copied it. So it's headed a portfolio for strategic accounts, billing XYZ amount of annual, ranking 2nd in India. For doctors, reduced readmission rates by 25% through implementation of new patient education program. Researchers published 5 research articles in high impact medical journals, or secured 100,000 grant in grant funding for a research project. For lawyers, 180% of cases are in court and secured 1 million in a complex. So let's ask, maybe we can ask Seema on the chat, like what is one thing common, like which they just noticed from all 4 bullets?
So please put your answers in the chat if you found something. Yes. Okay, we have some quick responses coming. Quantified results, specifics. Quantify the impact. Action words plus impact. Matrix, numbers. So which one are you going to go for, Rohan?
All perfect.
Okay.
So that's exactly, see, numbers is a global language, all right? Everyone understands numbers, all right? Seema is the chief learning officer who teaches people, but Seema is the chief learning officer leading a team of 50 people across 3 cohorts, managing XYZ $1 million in revenue. Which one is more impactful? The latter. So whenever you're designing the ideal resume bullet, think about your specific role and its day-to-day KRAs. KRAs are key responsibility areas. Do you bring in revenue? Do you handle marketing? Do you handle product? Do you handle operations? And somewhere or the other, you will find that your day-to-day work is linked to the impact that the organization is creating at a larger level. Every role in an organization is directly or indirectly contributing to the vision of the organization. That's how P&Ls are made. That's how organizations are set up. So when we get like queries from clients, like, this was a very research oriented role, I don't have anything to quantify, especially when it comes from like PhD people, lawyers, all of that, because they read a lot, etc. The only easiest thing is to kind of quantify how much have they read, what have they researched. Big brands, it always won't be numbers, but there are some kind of relatable information. And like people mentioned on the chat, measure the impact, because what did you give back? So we kind of operate on this 3 bullet rule. First is your job responsibilities. Second is quantify your impact. And third is what you gave back to the role and organization. So keep that in mind and just link whatever you're doing to the larger vision of the organization, and you can make an ideal resume bullet.
Should we take some more questions, or do you want to quickly finish the presentation? Because I know we are almost like only 20 minutes to go. Maybe we should finish the presentation quickly. What do you think? Okay.
Cool. Moving to skill section. All right. So skills and certification is something that me and my co-founder Anurag and my team, we really dwelled on this section more, because we always used to get a query of like, should we make multiple resumes? Should we make one, etc. So we came up, like, there are resumes which would have a separate skill section, but the main agenda of this is to kind of complete your master resume. All right. Because your work experience, if you're a sales professional, it will come off as sales experience. And when you run it through an ATS, it will probably put you at that tangent that you're 65% sales, 70% sales. Now, when it comes to skill certification, you should always categorize your skills in different categories, because this gives you an opportunity to show things that are different from your work experience. So I could be like, I'm a sales professional, but I do a lot of content marketing. So I can definitely add that over there. Organizational skills. This is where your soft skills come into place. A lot of project management, team management, anyone working in an organization is somewhat the other leading some kind of pods or small projects. We can add that over here. Technical skills, like we did a recent study and we found out like you should, if you know how to use ChatGPT, you should add that as a technical skill because it is a skill in today's time. So that is something employees are like. So use this section to kind of to your advantage to build that one master resume. Okay, summary and photos. So summary is it's a very important aspect if you are transitioning from a different role. Maybe you're moving from product to finance. That's a completely different trajectory you're taking. Or you're joining the workforce after a long career break. Or you're just starting out, like someone said, I'm a fresher out of college, because that gives some context about the person. But in a regular scenario, when you're looking for your first, second job, we can definitely utilize that in terms of those 2-3 inches will really help you in getting more bullets. So I have a sample summary here. Like this was a person I was like mentioned, he had taken a break. This is 15 to 20 words, nothing more. Set some context that why was the gap there. After taking a career break, to do health reasons, looking to transition from banking, etc. So he was transitioning from banking. He took a career break. So that definitely required some context as to why was he. Okay, photos globally are not recommended for the prime reason that it causes a bias. All right. When you see someone's picture, it automatically ignites a bias in your head. But in case the place where you're applying, be it like you're applying from like a college or institution, the placement cycle strategy is completely sorted. It's completely different than a regular application. And it's required. I would strongly recommend just follow the guidelines and add it. Okay, this is our last bit. I will be just covering what an ATS is, and then we can wrap this up. So there is a lot of misknowledge about what an ATS is. I'm going to be very concise and explain what it is. So ATS stands for Application Tracking Software. Like I mentioned earlier, large companies use this to store a bunch of resumes, but the primary KRA is to parse resumes. Now, what do you mean by parsing a resume is, if I'm processing thousands of resumes in a day, it gives me an analysis of the candidate so that I can just look at, I like these 5 candidates and I'll just go for it. That's where the problem comes when you start using multiple formats or different formats. Maybe you didn't make the cut. So when you're making a resume, ensure that these red flags are not that much. And ATS is a black hole also. You really don't know if the company is using it or not. So it's best to kind of have an ATS friendly resume because you don't want to take a chance with it. So like I mentioned, it's designed to scan resumes and keywords, phrases. It does this by parsing the resume text. Now here are the red flags that miss. Tables. It's sad to see that some of our, leading institutions in India still use tables on the resumes. What happens is tables are not text. They're made up of cells. So when these cells go through that software, it causes a problem for the ATS to kind of distinguish between the different data types. Images, clear logic. They're made up of different formats. They have pixels. They're not text. So it just handling the whole thing becomes a challenge. We've integrated with an ATS internally at BYOB, and trust me, it's not an easy tool to manage. All right, it's very complex. So it's best to keep your resume plain black and white. And that's my next slide, colors. So colors have different wavelengths of lights. They are in different shades. If you open it on DocX or WordDoc, the color palette might change, all of it. So this also kind of distracts the ATS from parsing the text effectively. Lastly, there's an ATS friendly is almost easy on the eye because it's simple and easy to read. I think, Seema, that's it from my end. Just check. Yep.
All right. So let's take some of the questions that have come Hardik wants to know what happens to side projects, volunteering activities, part of an alumni association, exec committee, etc. Should that be in your one-page resume?
Depends on what stage of your career you are. All right. So till I was looking for my second job, I had that, because volunteer work is kind of something extracurricular. But if you're looking for your first job, first internship, and to some extent your second job, if you're looking very quickly, definitely have volunteer work. But as in you progress, you can leave that out.
Sri Lakshmi Patil wants to know how is the market for quality assurance based jobs? Is there any impact on hiring due to recession? I'm not sure if we can answer that clearly, Sri Lakshmi. Sorry, we are not recruiters. But I don't know, Rohan, any thoughts?
There's a slowdown in all sectors. So that's all I can say.
All right. There's someone who wants to know how do you send a resume and when do you send a resume and when do you send a CV? I'll just take a crack at that first. In India, we tend to ask for a CV, but necessarily what we really want is a resume.
I think you summed it up perfectly.
Yeah. And other than that, I think it's very critical. Do you really have a CV? Which means, do you really have that much of information, that kind of academic background that you need to put it? So you will know that, based on this thing, it's a terminology problem. I mean, I know in international markets, they're very clear what a CV means, what a resume means. In India, as Rohan said, we even call it a biodata. So, technically 99% of the time when they say send your CV, it's not to do with the sharp distinction between the two, more to do with how colloquially we use the phrase interchangeable.
I think I don't need to add anything to that.
Great. There is a question now from Ria Parik. She says she's a fresher, BTech, computer science. She's sitting for placements. She has 5 relevant internship experience, but she's only, but I have mentioned till now, but I don't know if she means to say she's mentioned only 1. But this makes space less available to write projects. I can only write 1 project in that much. So I think even before Rohan takes it up, you're basically not using the principles of writing briefly. You're not supposed to write a full paragraph on what you did, in that resume. I got up, I stood there, I wrote this, I did this. Your internship is a 2-month internship or 3-month or 4-month, whatever, At best, you would have worked on 1 project. Just talk about that. Rohan, you want to add something here?
And what was the end result of the project? Simple. If you analyzed 50 reports, something, that's it. How did you analyze them? You used Excel, you did a pivot, that is not required. So just 1-line description is more than enough.
All right, let's take this question from Hardik. This is an interesting one. File format. How should you send your resume? As a doc file or as a PDF?
PDF. PDF opens a lot of these, because thanks to WhatsApp, a lot of recruiters kind of just check it on their phone and email. PDF keeps the formatting intact. All right. When it comes to DocX, you can try it. We always do it with our clients. When you send it on an email, if it's an Android, if it's an iPhone, if it's a Google Doc, you just open on different things. PDFs are always kind of uniform. So always send it in a PDF. Use an editable version for DocX to make changes. But when you're sending it, use a PDF.
So when you're giving us the resumes at AMP, we always insist that Rohan gives it to us in both formats. You always keep it a doc, Google Doc or whatever, whichever, because then you're able to change it regularly. But when you're submitting it somewhere, it's always a better idea to, because when you make the PDF, you can immediately figure out if the formatting has gone for a toss.
Absolutely.
That's why it's important for you to sort of always send your resume in a PDF format. Okay, there is a question from Shruti. She says she's changing her profile from a structural engineering design to a training industry. Should I include my past training experience? Relevant, right?
Yes, of course. If you're moving into a more in-depth role, then you should definitely add your past training experience because it will only add value to it.
This one is interesting, Hardik. Too many questions, but last one because I find this interesting also. I know a lot of people wonder what to write in skills. And he's saying in skills, if you write things like curious or critical thinking or team management skills, doesn't everyone have it? You'll be surprised to know how many people don't have it. And also it's important when you highlight this, the reason why you write this is also if your recruiter reads it and then decides to question you on that, then you better have those, right answers. Rohan, you want to add something?
No, I think that's a fair point. So when it comes to team management, that's a very specific one I'll pick up. If you've managed teams, use that in the work experience. Tell them that you led a team of 5, 10 to manage something, etc. That's a better representation of team management. The skill section, definitely highlight your technical skills. That is something that I can give feedback from the market as well. Now we're living in a time that even if your role doesn't require you to be technical, it's good to always have that. That is one avenue that you can definitely highlight. And something that doesn't kind of come across through your work experience, right? So team management is definitely easier to do it through work experience. Program management might not be, because maybe you might be a leader on somewhere, you do some special projects, so you can put that, etc. Maybe you work with the product team at a tech company, so you can definitely add a little bit of product management over there, but that was not your main KRA. So all of those things, those secondary things that you did at your job, but weren't your primary, add them over there.
Mitesh wants to know, should you put company brand logos on a resume?
No, I would stay away from it, like I mentioned, because the name is enough. All right. That's a good question. I read a study about how it kind of bumps up the ATS score or something. The name is suffices. The logo actually has colors and everything, so it actually hurts your chances. So it's better to just keep the name.
All right, let's take this. This is Kanchan wants to know, can you write about your part-time work if you've done some part-time work along with your full-time work?
Yes, definitely you can. There is no restriction as to not putting that. There is a lot of people who, especially in the last 2 years post-pandemic, the gig economy has like completely exploded. So a lot of people are doing part-time gigs, freelancing gigs. So it does add, that actually quantifies as work experience. So definitely have that.
Sanyam wants to know, would you recommend changing bullets based on the kind of jobs you're applying?
So like I mentioned, that's very important. All right, that's even more specific. Like you can't change a bullet depending on that. Like if you did sales, you can't like position it that you managed finance. All right, that's kind of not being true to your KRA. I would not recommend doing that because you're honestly just wasting time. That's something that we've learned. If you want to show your extra kind of skills that you've done it, use the skill section and maybe quantify it in a different manner.
There's a question here from Guru Raj, wants to know, is it true that only enterprise companies use ATS, or is ATS being used in startups as well?
No, it's from my 8-year experience, that is very true. I haven't seen startup because ATS is, but I don't quote me on it. From my limited experience or wherever I've spoken, I've seen ATS is a very legacy oriented kind of system. All right, so very large organizations and etc. And an ATS is, there's a multiple KRAs also for an ATS. All right, people store their resume if they want to reach out to a candidate, etc. All of that. So partly true, enterprise companies do use FMCGs, Fortune 500s, all of that. But startups, probably to save the cost, they would probably not be using it.
Essentially, because it depends on which companies are hiring at large scale. So they would make that investment in an ATS because they also get that volume of. Again, I think, there is someone who's I think must be one of our former students who's not happy with your resume or the resume we put together. Says they put the resume out and they felt somebody gave them the idea that, oh, this is not very good. It's old fashioned. So again, the point there is that if the resume is feeling, or you have all the information. Please feel free to put it in a format that works for you. There is no reason for you. The point is really when you're working on a resume is to get your information correct and then play with the format. That's what we would recommend and say that, you should do that.
Yeah,
This one is on me. So because that format that we use is something that we've created, but fair enough. We were equally heard and many people say it works very well. So.
No, I also recently I had a client call last week only. They said that my resume wasn't attractive enough. I'm not going to put purple on it just because you say. So it's in the end, it's your call, but there are benefits of not having that purple on it.
Okay. There's someone who says, how do I fit 10 years of experience in a one-page resume?
You can fit 25 years of experience in a one page if you know how to do it. So see, 10 years, just do the rewind. Something you did in 2013 is probably not relevant in 2023. All right. So I usually don't it's very rare that we have kind of eliminated a work experience. We've done resumes all the way till 35, 40 years of experience also. But if you're doing something and it goes back to the 90s, yes, we can probably edit it out when it comes to work experience. But the first thing would be to trim your education a lot. All right, just keep your college and your postgrad over there. Now, when you do the 2013 to 2023 kind of cycle, if you change 10 companies, it's going to be a hard one for you because one company name, one bullet, one timeline can take a lot of space. So there you can kind of take a subjective call to remove the earlier ones. But if you stayed at one company for like 5-6 years and the total was split in 2 companies, then it's pretty easy to manage it. So go on the reverse order.
Okay. And also, we have an interesting question from Shubhra Sharma. She wants to know, would you recommend that you make a one-page CV and then add an annexure for all your experience in detail?
So I would say go digital. Create a Notion portfolio or LinkedIn profile, and link it on the top. That is the way it will get read. Not a bad idea because a lot of graphic designers and visual people have something that is more visually appealing. So you can just link it on the top, and PDFs allow you to click on links. So that would be the better way to annex it.
Oh, this is an interesting one also. I've never thought of this. And maybe instead of a summary line, maybe we could try this. This is Anjali Gupta. She says, is it a good idea to add a tagline next to your name like we do in LinkedIn?
So the LinkedIn link is going to be right next to your name. So why don't just keep it on LinkedIn? LinkedIn gives you 220 characters. So that's more to play around. So I would recommend that because a tagline is very similar. But if you can get it down to 5 words, maybe experiment it.
Mitesh wants to know, should we write a cover letter while sending a resume on email?
Cover letters are passe, so I would not recommend. Make a crisp, cold email, 3-para rule. Why are you reaching out? What do you do? And a closing note. That'll work better.
And I'll add this question from Deepak. He says, when do we need a cover letter? See, if a company explicitly asks you for a cover letter, sure. But if you're just writing a cold email to someone, that in itself is a cover email that you're writing to someone, asking them to open your email and sort of giving them a call to action, right?
Yep.
One thing that I wanted to mention, and Rohan, I don't know if you've seen this, many a times when people write cover letters, they talk about why they want to join the company, why they will be wonderful for the company, why they are so good. I mean, really, at the end of the day, if you're writing a cover letter,
make it about them.
Yes. Why are you useful to them is the question they want to know or answer. I mean, understand rather than why you think they are good for you.
Yeah.
Please understand it's not an employee's market currently. It's an employer's market. They want to know, what do you have that nobody else has? If you can point that out in 2 or 3 lines, you've grabbed their attention enough for them to open your resume. Okay. We have a question: with so many online tools to score the resume and all of them giving different results, which one do you trust?
I will answer this because my entire team will answer this. We did an experiment for 4 weeks. We used 10 online tools. We did pre-BYOB resumes, post-BYOB resumes. All of them are designed to score them less so that you can pay for their service. You can quote me on this. Like, there is barely any kind of tool that is there. There is one good tool, which I am forgetting the name. I will definitely share that with Seema after the call. But there is definitely one we shortlisted. But one thing we did notice, and this can be a slight subtle sell on BYOB, all the tools did give us a bump up in our score. So either it was a 20%, 60%, 40%, but there was a bump. So having the resume structured the way I've shared it in today's webinar, that's the goal to go. Because whenever you go through a free resume tool, you need to kind of think from their perspective. They will not give you a 10 on 10 or 100 on 100, because how will they make money? So that's the agenda. So just play around with your resume, see if it bumps. If it doesn't bump, then probably they've just capped the score.
Okay, there's Sachdev. Sachdev, perhaps you can reach out to Rohan directly. I think he has a question about CXOs and how do you have build their profile. It's a more detailed discussion, and you'll probably have to sort of go through that. I think somebody else also wanted to know if they can get their resume evaluated. It's a paid service, so please reach out to Rohan directly. Or, of course, you can join the accelerated management program, and there's a different way to do that there. Okay. Somebody wanted to know what's the best format for a resume. Can you show it? We basically said keep it as simple as possible. Keep it, this thing. The link to this webinar will be available on Harappa's YouTube channel, Harappa TV. You'll be able to see it there. We'll also, it's on LinkedIn. You can, sort of go there and see the full webinar if that helps you. I'm going fast because we have many, many questions, and I do want to try and answer as many as we can, and we are over time. I think one question is, should you, for your education, do you mention your CGPA or not?
That's a good one. So I would say, like, if you were a 9 out of 10 or whatever the scale was, 3.9, 3.4, 3.9 out of 4, etc., and very early in your career, yes, definitely do it. But once you've entered the corporate world and once you've started getting the jobs, and maybe you can take a call to remove it. So early in your career, you don't have that much to show, but if it's a good one, for sure, show it.
I think one last question, which I will take, which is Mitesh. I think we need to explain what really happens when a resume goes through an ATS. So there is no person sitting behind. The person sitting behind will only get the selected resume. So actually, when your resume is going through the ATS, the first selector is not any person sitting behind. It is, so you have to make that cut to get to the human. So the question that Mitesh was asking is, should we make a resume for an ATS or a person sitting behind an ATS? Will a bland resume appeal to the human being?
Yes, it will. And to explain how an ATS works, just think from a volume perspective. Right? It is a machine that takes 5,000 resumes and it'll give you a score. That score is defined by the employer. Right? So suppose I am at TCS, I'm looking for software engineers. All right. Maybe I want that resume to score anything between 80% to 100% of software engineering experience. Now, if I give my resume, I probably get a score of 20% there. All right, or 5% because I have no experience. But if my co-founder applies there, he probably gets a 80% plus score. So he gets selected to the second cut. So that's how it's configured. And how it looks like, it's like think of Tableau or Excel or something very visually appealing on the other end, which gives you a score. Rohan Kapur, sales experience 70%, marketing 30%, etc., skills, and that's how you select it.
Okay, I think we are going over time, so I'll stop here. But thank you so much, Rohan. The Accelerated Management Program currently is recruiting for its 4th cohort. If you're interested, please do reach out to us. We not only help you to think through your career, of course, get a resume. We also give you some of the most updated sort of information and sort of management skills that can help you with your next job. And we're only 6 months, as in our course is only 6 months. So it helps you to sort of get upskilled without leaving your job, without moving out, of employment. So thank you so much. Lots and lots of questions today. And it was really fun. I know we went very fast, but I hope we answered almost everything. With that, I'd like to thank Rohan, and please do reach out to us if you have any questions.